Welcome, listeners. This is the 13th episode of the 792 Florida Sports Podcast. I am Hunter Williams, and I'll be joined by a special guest later on in the show. We are here at Week 11. One more week until we are hitting playoff games, and that's really that's going to be the most exciting time of the football season, obviously, because it's win or you're done. It's one or done, and it's 5 games to win to get yourself a state championship. There's only 8 of them in Florida each year, and we're looking forward to seeing how this playoffs turn out, but not before we get through one more week of the regular season, and we got ourselves a couple of solid games up on tap for this week as well, which we'll get into later in the show. But enough about that. We're going to go a quick review of some of last week's games, and then we're going to be joining on by our special guest, which we'll get to very soon. Obviously, I was at the Columbia-Middleburg game this past week. Columbia won 48-23 over Middleburg to win number 15-0 over Middleburg all time. And Columbia was able to snap a 2-game losing streak in that win to move to 7-2 heading into the final week of the regular season. Columbia had previously lost in overtime to Lee, which ended up costing them the district championship as Lee was able to clinch with a win over Gainesville this past Friday night. And then Columbia lost to the number 1 team in Palm Beach County, Atlantic Delray. Overall in this game, the biggest takeaway I got from it, even though Columbia clearly is not playing at their highest level at the moment, they did protect the ball much better than they had for pretty much the past month. It's definitely a sign of things to come, hopefully. But of course, beating Middleburg is not going to be the same as some of the teams that Columbia's going to have to play. Obviously, starting with North Marion, who is a solid team in their own right, who is also 7-2. And then the potential playoff matchups, which will likely be 4 straight on the road if Columbia is wanting to get back to the finals. So it's definitely not going to be the easiest setup for trying to go deep, but of course we've seen this happen before, so I guess we'll just have to wait and see, since we know there's a lot of Columbia listeners out there. As for some other games from this past week, up over in 6A Region 1, Escambia defeated Pensacola, Washington 50-7, which will lock up a district title for them. Dunellen knocked off North Marion 20-14, which also locked up a district title. Trinity Christian beat Rains in overtime 17-14, which will put them at 5-5 and should put them into the playoffs as playing one of the toughest schedules in all of Florida and even nationwide. Terry Parker was able to lock up a district title with a 26-21 win over Westside. That was their first playoff berth since 2000, so shout out to them on ending a 19-year playoff drought this year. Ponte Vedra won the district over St. Augustine 38-35. Apopka, they will retain a district title as they defeated Lake Mary 45-11. Port and Charlotte was able to get a good win over Braden River 29-21. Lincoln pulled what may have been considered the upset statewide this past week, knocking off undefeated Palmetto 42-23. And that puts Lincoln in a very good spot and definitely exposed a few potential weaknesses on what was a previously unbeaten Palmetto squad. Manatee was able to win a district title this past week, beating Venice 30-13. Booker T. Washington is working towards submitting their claim as the top dog in the 4A South with a 28-6 win over Miami Edison. And if the Lincoln Palmetto game is not the biggest upset of the week, this one is definitely going to be right there with it. Chaminade Madonna knocked off Miami Central 27-7 in a result that definitely surprised some people. And I'm joined here now by a special guest. Please welcome Joshua Wilson from Florida High School Football.
Oh, hey, appreciate you having me on, Hunter.
I'm glad I was finally able to get you on here on the 792 on episode 13.
Yeah, it's a busy life these days.
Oh, I understand that for sure. I think I never know what days I'll ever be free to do these shows.
Yeah, so I mean, it's been busy. I mean, it's hard to believe we're week 11 already. So I mean, it's the last week of the regular season, and next week, actually before we get to next week, we'll get to Sunday first. We'll have playoff brackets. We will know where everybody is seated at. All right. I mean, of course, I have set off a Twitter firestorm as we record this, so that's that's something. Hey, if you're following on Twitter, it's FLIHS football. So there you go.
Oh yeah, I know that I commented on the RPI issue 2 weeks ago, and I had my phone blowing up nonstop for 3 days. I instantly regretted saying anything because my phone would never shut up as soon as I said something. Obviously,
it happens.
Obviously, the RPI, it's went one of two ways with people. It's either something that they are able to accept and like, or they completely hate it. And we're seeing mostly the hate when it comes to the social media platform right now. But just overall, from what you're seeing so far in its first year, what are your early impressions of it? Good and bad.
Well, the whole RPI system. It's I mean, some people are some of the big things with the RPI itself is I don't know if there's a whole lot of bad minus a few teams that are going to have losing records that get in. But again, you have to analyze and look at each team individually when you look at those teams that have got these kind of records. And there's going to be a big significant difference when I say this. Plant's 3-6. Plant will probably finish 4-6. Be number 8 seed in 8A Region 2. So, but if people got to go back and look at the 6 games they lost. All 6 of those teams are going to make the playoffs.
Well,
that's how strong that strength of schedule has been for Plant. And people say, "Oh no, strength of schedule isn't counting into this." No, there is the strength of schedule. It's there. It's in the formula. You're just not seeing it being out there in front in terms of what I would call naked numbers. It's in that opponent's win percentage, is in that opponent's win percentage. When you combine that together, and there's actually a little known formula that deals with strength of schedule. It deals with these numbers that if you take the schedule, it's dealing with the opponent's win percentage and the opponent's win percentage, and you get a number that would be considered the strength of schedule. And it's going to be kind of curious. It's interesting once we get the final numbers on Sunday morning. Okay, I'll be able to sit there and say, okay, you know what? Who had the best strength of schedule in this state this year, and who had the worst? Because at the end of the day, Plant is going to come out as one of those teams that has had that strong strength of schedule in the state as a team with a losing record. And then you'll probably go look at say Jacksonville Trinity Christian. That's another team, 5-5. But look at who they played. Man, they have played the gauntlet. So there's probably some cons. I mean, I think the cons would probably be. I think it would work better if the FHA would shrink a classification in one sense, maybe say eliminate regions and call them and say take so 5A through 8A you take the districts 1 through 8 and you call that the North bracket and you seed everybody 1 through 16 based upon take the 8 district champs and then you have 8 wild cards and it's based upon the RPI. That would change some differences right there. That would make some things very, very interesting. And I'll break that down. I'll take a look at it after the fact once everything we get through Sunday. But another thing, is maybe maybe bring back districts in 1A through 4A and, just let the district champs, have the 2 bye spots for the buys and, just seed them wherever they, based upon their RPI, give them 1, 2, then get 4 wild cards and, like that, or you spread it out where it's 8 wild cards, 4 district champs, 8 wild cards. Again, go north south. I think it would. I think there's just some things. I think the RPI is the right system, but there can be some tweaks made along the way. And what are those tweaks? Maybe you adjust the win percentage. Maybe how much the win percentage. You give it a little, move it up a little bit more. Maybe you don't weigh the opponent's win percentage as much. There's so many different things that can happen. And of course, December 18th, that'll be a Wednesday. There'll be a big meeting of FHA offices in Gainesville with the football advisory committee, and they'll bring up some suggestions. And I can tell you right now, there's some coaches that are like really, really crazy and fired up and all of that. So it's a mixed bag of emotions, I would say, on some of this. But for right now, I think the RPI is close to getting the majority of the right teams in. The teams that have played a weaker schedule, or I would say, I don't know if say getting exposed is the right word, but maybe it's just showing, hey, you're going to have to break the thought process of just scheduling teams in a metro, as I say, like Orange County, say Metro Conference, for example. You can't go scheduling all your teams that you play in the Metro Conference. You're gonna have to do like Apopka has done and is break free because, well, of course, teams don't want to play Apopka in their own Metro Conference, which is the Orange County schools. They're just gonna have to break that mold, and they're going to have to schedule one or two teams that are, that are the teams that you can really push and go after and battle, because it'll help your strength of schedule and it'll battle test you at the end of the day.
Most definitely. Also, I've been saying for the last 2 years, when it comes to like 1 through 4A, the biggest issue that they could do to fix it is make it north and south. When they remove districts, in my opinion, there was no reason to keep it as 4 regions, because if you're not forcing teams into a district, then they can play whoever they want during the season. What's the point of trying to keep it so geographically thin in the playoffs? They control their schedule during the season. If they have a slightly longer travel in the playoffs, so be it. It'll make the playoffs a better bracket.
Right. So, it would make it a thing, and it would change some things, and we'll have to see what happens there, and we'll have to go from there and, just build upon it and see what happens, see what the FHA decides to do.
All right, and we'll go ahead and I'll just hit on a couple of regions that I saw and that caught my interest, and I guess I'll start with 6A Region 1, which is probably the one I'm most familiar with. Right now, it's got Scambia as the 1 seed, slated to play New Smyrna Beach, who jumped up to the 8th seed when Milton lost. Ponte Vedra and St. Augustine in a potential rematch in the first round. Lee is currently slated to play Washington, and Mainland's slated to play Columbia. But one thing I did notice, the RPI between Lee and Mainland, it's separated by 1/10 of a point. This week, Mainland plays 8-1 Bulls. Lee plays 3-6 Ed White. I'm going to feel personally like if both those teams win, it's a pretty high probability, in my opinion, that we could see a flip of those 2 seeds going into Selection Sunday.
Well, right. That's a potential that can happen. It's also a potential, you also look, you look at, it's also based upon, hey, if Columbia wins, well, then, hey, it's going to, Lee's going to get the impacts of North Marion in their schedule. And then, because there's so many varying factors, there's a potential for a flip to happen. There's a potential it could stay together. So it's, it's really at this particular point, it's there's a lot there that could happen, a lot that can change. You look at New Smyrna Beach. New Smyrna Beach is not totally locked into that 8th seed. So St. Augustine. St. Augustine could be the 8th seed. New Smyrna Beach could be the 7th seed. There's a lot of various factors, and again, we're not going to know until Sunday morning what exactly this whole thing looks like. So it's there's a lot of scenarios, but your first 4 seeds, they're all locked in. We know they're all playoff bound. Columbia, I think, is pretty much a lock. and so is Pensacola. Washington, but that 7 and 8 seed